The System Designer menu in AutoResp 3 allows you to assign specific equipment listed in the Devices menu to your respirometer chambers and water quality controls, and to enter setup-related information. When you first enter the System Designer menu, you will find yourself in the Configurator tab. In the Configurator tab, you can see the number of chambers you have available. The maximum number of available chambers depends on the number of available oxygen channels on the instrument listed in the Devices menu. The panel on the right shows you how many power relays, oxygen channels, and temperature channels you have available in total. In this example, only swim tunnels are shown as a DAC-BT swim tunnel motor controller is connected in the Devices menu. If no DAC-BT devices are connected, the software will show resting chambers only. For this demo, we want to set up a system with 2 swim tunnels. Notice that a few things happen when you select your 2 swim tunnels. First, 3 new tabs appear at the top. We will get to them in a second, but note that they represent your 2 swim tunnels, as well as an overview tab. You may also observe that you now have less hardware available in the panel on the right, as the 2 DAC-BTs, 2 oxygen channels, and 2 relays have been automatically assigned between your 2 swim tunnels. The required hardware per chamber is shown underneath each category illustration. Power relays in a parenthesis means that an extra relay is required for double or two-way regulation of water temperature or oxygen. Lastly, the number of available water quality controls has dropped, illustrating that you now have less hardware devices available. In this demo, we want to be able to regulate the oxygen level in the ambient water bath for one of our swim tunnels and the water temperature in the other swim tunnel. Notice that a few arrows appear underneath the number selector. The first arrow indicates single regulation, meaning that we are only able to regulate the water temperature up or down using a single solenoid valve. The other 2 arrows represent double or two-way regulation, meaning that you can regulate up and down using 2 separate valves. We want a double regulation for both controls. Now entering the first swim tunnel tab, notice that this tab has a red question mark. This illustrates that some required information about the swim tunnel is missing in the settings panel on the right, and so your system is not ready yet. If we focus on the settings panel first, we need to enter the chamber volume for the swim tunnel, so we will go ahead and do that. You can select your swim tunnel model and choose between any of our standard-sized swim tunnels. It's important to select the correct swim tunnel model, as model-specific information will be used throughout the software. And as an example, you can see that the cross-sectional area of the test section changes with the model. You may also rename your swim tunnel. The name you enter here will also show during an experiment, so it's a good way to easily distinguish your swim tunnels from each other. Finally, you can choose whether you want real-time temperature compensation of your oxygen measurements using one of the Vitrox instruments. If you do not have a Vitrox available, you can choose to enter a fixed temperature value during an experiment. The temperature that is referred to here is the temperature of the sample water. And moving on to the animated illustrations. These illustrations are meant as a guide to you, showing what a typical swim tunnel or resting chamber setup would look like. In this case, we see that the flush pump and all of our tubing is supposed to be submerged in the water bath, which improves overall temperature control. We also notice that the temperature probe from the Vitrox should be placed inside the swim tunnel or in the water bath. And when we hover the mouse over the probe, we can see that it's connected to this temperature channel on this specific Vitrox in the hardware panel. Doing a mouse over on power relay number 1 on our Power X4 also shows us that this is supposed to be the flush pump for this swim tunnel. And since the relay is on, indicated by the green light, the pump should be on too, and the water should be flowing in this direction as shown by the moving arrows. In other words, Combining the hardware panel and animated illustration is a good way to check that your pumps, valves, and sensors are connected to the correct devices and relays. And if your flush pump in your actual setup is not connected to the correct relay on this PowerX4, simply reconnect your pump to that relay in your actual setup. We will then move on to the next swim tunnel chamber in line and enter the relevant information. If you're working with resting chambers, the chamber tab will look a little different. Here you can select the type of chamber material you're using, and the animated illustration will change accordingly. You can also choose if you're using a horizontal or vertical chamber setup. Next to the chamber volume, you will find a tube volume field. This is where you input the volume of water inside all of the tubing connected to that specific chamber. Notice that the resting chamber has a flush pump connected to relay number 1 on this PowerX4, and a recirculation pump connected to relay number 2. Moving on to the water quality controls, the same principles apply. The setup guide shows you the power relays each valve or pump must be connected to on this specific PowerX4, and that the temperature probe and oxygen sensor must come from this Vitrox. You can also choose the type of temperature compensation, and you can rename the control, for example to O2 Control Swim 1. Note that you do not select which swim tunnel that the specific control applies to inside AutoResp. Instead, you simply make sure that your actual hardware, pumps, valves, etc. are arranged accordingly so that they control the oxygen level in your swim tunnel. Finally, we end up in the Overview tab. The Overview tab provides you with a handy summary of all your chambers and controls, and the information you have entered for each. The same settings information can be changed here as well. The Overview tab is especially helpful in multi-channel setups to quickly check that all chambers have the correct information entered. Once all the check marks are green, the new system is ready for use, and you can return to the main menu. Your system setup will be automatically saved in AutoResp 3, and it will be the same setup that shows up when you exit and re-enter the software until you change it or reset the software settings.